Good morning and welcome to Enterprise Morning on Enterprise Television. I am Kende Bodorin.
And I am Henry.
It's the start of a new day and we are so glad to have you on the show. We will kick off with today's newspaper review before diving into the main conversation of the day. Trust me, you don't want to miss a moment with us. You can join the conversation by dropping your comments, liking and following us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. So joining us to share the matters at hand is Olugbenga Paul Ayonuga. He's a political commentator. You're welcome,
Good morning, Mr. Ayonuga.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure having you equally. I would love us to start with the first daily on our desk. This coming from the Guardian newspaper. And we have the big story. Trump's warning unsettles Nigeria, raises concerns over religion sovereignty.
Okay, still on that, we have NUJ decries surge in attacks, impunity against journalists.
And also we have how DSS aborted Utumi's aberrative shadow government through legal process.
We also have NRC train derails 189th time, 3 days after resumption.
All right, Mr. Ayonuga, allow us to start with the story on NUJ, Nigerian Union of Journalists, decrying surge in attacks, impunity against journalists. What's your take on this? And knowing that this current administration actually stood on the grounds of free press, the Nadeko era, and so many other things were based on journalistic transparency. Unfortunately, now the man in power is making it even more difficult for journalists to practice well within his administration. Speak to us on this, please.
Well, I would not want to use the word "the man in power" making it hard to for journalists to practice, because let us be balanced as the ombudsman of the society. Well, the Nigerian Union of Journalists over time has eroded itself, just like almost every other union that we've had in the country, where political patronage has made them like an arm of the government, like a media aid arm of the government. So I will tell you for free that 90% of the policymakers who make the life of journalists hard, who make it almost impossible for the Freedom of Information Act in a lot of administration in the past, are former journalists, are former editors who cut their teeth on the field of journalistic endeavor, but now that they have gotten into government, they are observing table manners while eating. So it would be unfair to put that blame on the table of the president. The president cannot be a doctor and be a lawyer and be a journalist and be this and be that at the same time. That is why he has aides, and those aides make laws at his pleasure. So if those aides are doing certain things, we won't expect the president to know it all. So he will react based on advice he gets from his aides. That's why you see most governors or leaders, if they were to be maybe lawyers, you will see that people in the law profession will enjoy during their tenure. If they were to be doctors, the people in medical profession will enjoy during their tenure. A case in example is that of Governor Nyesom Wike, when he was the governor in Rivers State and now FCT minister. You will see that he's doing a lot for the judiciary. When Governor Mimiko was the governor in Ondo State, he was doing a lot for the medical practitioner. But then at the same time, while we are trying to cry for justice, let the NUJ also flush its house clean. A lot of people, because of sensational story sales, a lot of people are not vetting stories that come out on their platform because they want to be the first to break the news. And at the end of the day, we have seen several times in the last 2-3 years where credible news stations come out with totally false reports. Some of them are humble enough to apologize, for carrying such false reports. Some of the reports they are carrying, maybe they lifted it from other sources without independently verifying. Some their journalists wrote the terror is that almost everybody is claiming to be journalists. Anybody that has a phone and has data, is claiming to be journalists right now. The NUJ needs to do something like a house cleaning for them to get their credibility back, and then they'll be able to fight this battle of making sure that government respects their voice when they speak.
Very true. Okay, so what protections does Nigerian law provide journalists against assault or harassment?
Well, there are a lot of fundamental laws that protect the journalists. Even the basic fundamental human rights, right to life, right to freedom of association, rights to freedom of movement, rights to information. Those naturally protect journalists. There are other further laws that protect journalists in conflict situation where, for example, the situation we had recently during the March for Nnamdi Kanu's release, where people who were apparently wearing journalist badge were attacked by the police, or let me say by some overzealous elements in the police force. The law is actually against that. There is constant effort to make sure that the police are trained and retrained to avoid such situation. That is why you saw that when the police spokesperson came on TV to speak, he was apologetic on behalf of those officers who carried out the situation. But apart from the law, what the journalists of old use in their own case is not just the element of the law, it's the element of having right, incontrovertible, fact-based information to fight people. So when you see situations where people post things and then they say heaven will fall, or we'll bring down this government and all the rest, only for them to now turn back after sometimes having discovered their error, that all they were basing their claim on were actual fallacies. Then they now come to be begging. Now, what law do you want to protect that person? Because while, yes, the law says you have freedom to speak, you have freedom of information, but then there is also a law that protects the other person you are speaking against, that says you cannot slander that person, that says you cannot blaspheme that person. And when that law applies against you, you will say, oh, they are trying to stifle journalists. So as ombudsman of the people, we need in our own right to be balanced first, before seeking judicial processes, so that at the end of the day, we are not fighting wars that make us look like people who don't know what we are doing.
All right, that's actually awesome. You said it so awesomely well. But of course, we can't take back what I would call digital stalking of the government. The new Cybercrime Act, as amended, is a little bit strict here and there. The case of defamation and loss of
slander
and libel. It's a very big thing. Journalists these days can't even differentiate when they should not defame or whatever it is that they say that looks defamatory and all. But of course, it's a growing matter that we hope that it will get better. Femi Adesina, while he was serving as media aide to Muhammad Buhari, crossed the line so many times. He watched when Twitter was banned, and this was someone who spoke against all of this during the military era.
And like I've said earlier, he was a former journalist.
Yes. An editor, senior editor.
So the onus is on us as new crop of journalists to take our time to read. You know, the challenge many of us have today is that the modern day journalists don't read. Back in the days, journalists read as much as lawyers do because they want to know which part of the law they can use to, like the cybercrime law that you're talking about now. I can bet to you, if you go to 10 media stations in Nigeria, both online media station and the regular media station, and you ask 80, maybe 10 of their staffs, especially those on the front end, you know, about some of these laws, I am sure that 80% have not read it. And even out of the 20% that read it, maybe only another 2% or 3% understood what they read. Meanwhile, the onus is on us to study these things, understand them, so that we can protect ourselves first and foremost, then protect our organization, and then when we speak, even the people we are speaking to, either in government, amongst the police, will know that these people knows what they are doing. And all over the world, people respect intelligence, even power respects intelligence, and that comes by we taking our time to study some of these laws.
Very well said.
Impressive.
Now let's take a look at another matter. You know, from the growing case against the journalists, of course, going against their rights, and this time around to what stands in for an opposition at this point. We have it that how DSS aborted Utomi's aberrative shadow cabinet through legal process. I would love that you speak to me on what a shadow government is, because the much I know, even if it's more of semantics, a shadow government is like an opposition. Someone standing to look at whatever it is you're doing and pinpointing what they think is wrong. So is it that the DSS does not understand the true definition of shadow government, or are they becoming overzealous at this point?
Anyway, shadow government is not necessarily an opposition. Shadow government can be a mirror for the main government. During the time of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, they had shadow government, and it is not necessarily to oppose every policy of the government. Sometimes it is just to show the government how to do it better, because as the saying goes, hindsight is always 2020 vision, you know, and the people currently at the corridor of power, due to some externalities and pressures here and there, they might miss out on some point and not get some policies right. Now, people who are neutral out there, who are not exposed to the pressure that those in the kitchen are exposed to, will see it better. And when those ones form shadow government, you'll be able to tell government that, oh, this policy you have made, maybe it is wrong or it is right. It could have been done better this way. It could have been done better that way. That was how it used to be in the days of Awolowo and of course, also in countries like the UK, they always have shadow cabinet and shadow government. But the challenge that we have, before we blame the DSS of being overzealous, the challenge that we have is that right now, those who are trying to do shadow government, shadow cabinet, are not doing it altruistically. Their shadow government is not born out of patriotism. It is born out of the desire to see the government in power fail.
But don't you think?
They are not. They are not even hiding it. That's why we know.
Don't you think your statement is subjective here? Because you are saying it from your own vantage point. Don't you think that the intent, the intent of that is to go against all the grotesque policies of this administration, which is glaring? You would love to believe with me.
Well, you will think that it is about going against grotesque policies, and I don't see any grotesque policies thus far as I am concerned. But the fact is that these people forming shadow government have not hidden it. They have not hidden their disdain for the government in power. They have not, in the days past, people will be in opposition, yet they will be giving policy advices to the government. Even the government in power will be calling them, and yes, they would disagree or at political level, but at governance level, they will say, oh, we want to help because all we desire is we want this country to work. But we have seen the body language, the overt and covert languages of these shadow government proponents, that it is not altruistic and it is not about my vantage point or my own point of view. It is about the body language that they have shown to us. I am neither pro-government nor anti-government. I'm just a Nigerian who wants to see Nigeria works. So, and if you are telling me you have alternatives, and you are going, sometimes communication is not so much what you say, but how you say it. And if your communication to me first shows that, oh, you have sinister agenda that wants to make my ideas not work, I have a right to defend myself. That is one on the part of the proponents of this shadow government. On the part of the DSS, yes, I agree that sometimes they can be overzealous, and that is because lately we have seen all government security architecture in the last 20 years, become an appendage of the personages in power, rather than being independent body to maintain law and order. And that you would expect to happen so long as the people in power are the ones who appoint the heads of these agencies. So take, for example, I don't know whether they still do it till now. About 10, 15 years ago, when I was in Ghana, I got to know that in Ghana, it is not the president that appoints the Inspector General of Police. The next 6 Inspector General of Police, they know themselves by virtue of the line of succession. I also learned that time that it wasn't the president that actually appoints the chief judge of the Supreme Court. The next 6 chief judges, they know themselves by line of succession, and so many organizations like that deal with government affairs in Ghana. So they are not afraid that a government will come in and bring a junior over seniors and sack the seniors, abruptly, because the law, the institution of governance protects them. But we don't have that in Nigeria. And so that when we see the organization like DSS, police, overzealous to protect the interest of people who appoint their leaders to office, then rather than blame them, I think first and foremost our job is to talk to all of our representatives in the Senate and the House of Rep. But you see, the challenge is that 90% of the time, their body language doesn't show that they represent us. That is why even if we tell them we need these institutional policies to be changed, they will hardly move a finger to change it if it does not align with their own personal interest in that national appeal.
Okay.
All right, that's actually awesome. As brilliant as you have, made that, made Nigerians see. Lots of people, might have it from another side. Remember, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
In 2012, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his crew organized Occupy Nigeria against President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. I do not know if that is not enough shadow government.
They didn't call it shadow government.
Okay, so what was that exactly?
No, they didn't call it shadow government. All they were doing was protesting and agitating, as it is the right of every citizen. Even with their agitation then, I also blame Goodluck Jonathan's administration for not handling the situation more with more strength. Jonathan run a laissez-faire kind of government where he let people do a lot of things and get away with it. And you don't rule a country that way. As a president, you must be able to boldly say, this is our policy direction, this is where we are going, and stand by it. And
you think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing that? Do you think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing just that now?
He's doing the opposite.
I think he's doing just that. And
really?
He's doing it wonderfully well. That is why policies that he himself stood against, maybe with hindsight, which, like I said earlier, is Vision 2020, he has seen that, okay, those policies are needed, like subsidy removal and the exchange rate, balancing. We see that he stood by it to the very end. And if we want to lie to ourselves and be, unpatriotic citizen, we will say we are not seeing the effect. In my own state, before Asiwaju came to government, I come from Ogun State. My state collects around 2-3 billion a month. Now, my state collects about 10 billion or in excess of 10 billion every month. So if I'm not seeing development in my state, that is not the problem of the presidency. You see, that's not the problem of the presidency. That's why when trees fall on one another, you take the one at the top first, one by one. See, the fact that your governors, my governors in all our different states are not allowing these excess funds getting to the state to reflect is not the fault of the presidency. It's not the presidency that is in charge of employing secondary school teachers in the state, for example. It is the job of the Ministry of Education in the state. In my own state, for example, there is shortage of teachers in many of our secondary schools and, shortage of teaching facilities. But that is not the fault of the presidency. So we can't be laying the fault that belongs to state government or to local government on the doorstep of the presidency. But if you talk about what the presidency has done, what the federal government has done, we must give kudos to them. My states have like ×3 of what they used to earn before now. So if development is not ×3 of what it used to be, it is my job, which I am rightly doing. Yesterday, I just came back from a tour of my senatorial district, Ogun East. I went with the senator representing my district on midterm assessment tour. And from that assessment tour, I was able to see for myself what my senator is doing, what my governor is doing, and what my governor is not doing. And so our job as citizens, which I am doing my own bit, is to call the attention of the state government, and if they are not listening, we do whatever needs to be done to get their attention to some of the issues.
Okay.
But we can't be blaming the presidency.
All right, so thank you so very much. Lots of people will say "come see, come sir," different strokes for different folks at this point. But just to let you know that Mr. Onanuga would be here to take us on our main conversation. That is when we return. Tinubu anticipated America's political game, and that is Onanuga speaking. In the beat, still Enterprise Morning. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. It's glad to have you join us today. So interesting. Let's get talking on our main conversation for today on Enterprise Television. We have it that Bayo Onanuga, Special Advisor on Information and Strategy to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has said the president was well ahead of the orchestrated game unfolding in America following renewed U.S. pressure over alleged persecution of Christians in Nigeria. His reaction followed the former U.S. President Donald J. Trump's move to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC, which of course they have done, and his threat to halt aid or take military action against terrorists in the country.
Very true. In a post on X, Onanuga said Tinubu had anticipated the rising global scrutinized and already addressed security concerns during a meeting with new service chiefs. He quoted, Tinubu was saying there must be no more excuses and that Nigerians expect results. Tinubu warned against the spread of new armed groups in the north central, northwest and south, urging decisive and innovative action to crush emerging threats.
All right, so let's get talking. We still have Mr. Onanuga, who is still with us and would love us to talk on this. So I would love you to speak on the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by Donald Trump and the United States government. What's your take on this? And let's get talking.
Well, there are several areas of takes on it. I don't have one single take. So first is to understand what is a country of particular concern. Under International Religious Freedom Act, you know, when they say somebody is of particular concern, it means that it is one of the serious diplomatic rebuke that United States can issue. It signals, you know, that a government has either engaged in or tolerated systemic, ongoing, and egregious violation of religious freedom. So for Nigeria, this one, it addresses government failure to investigate, prevent, or prosecute mass atrocities against Christian communities, and not just Christian communities, against Nigerians as a whole. You know, the major focus might be on the Fulani militia attack that is taking place in the north central, the northeast, and northwest. But then, what about Christian killing Christians in the southeast? What about, you know, non-Christian, non-Muslim Yoruba men disguising as, you know, militias, kidnapping their fellow men in the southwest? Now, because all these have not been handled well over time, that is why we are getting this designation. And we are not the only one on that list. Countries like China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are also on that list. Of course, you remember that the Uyghur Muslim persecution is still ongoing in most parts of China. So, but the problem with Nigeria is that we refuse to acknowledge the genocidal activities of the Fulani jihadists in the north for the last 10, 12 years. We refuse to designate them as a terrorist organization. So whilst we are hiding behind the finger and saying that the conflict in most part of the north central states of Benue, Taraba, Plateau, and the rest of them are farmer herders clashes, the people are seeing it differently. I mean, as a Nigerian, I'm seeing it differently. I know it is not a fight for control of resources. I know it is a displacement. Okay, say for example, it was alleged or rumored that Wase local government in, I think, southern Kaduna, where the former deputy speaker, Idris Wase or whatever, came from, it was when it was alleged that the Fulani who claim that local government right now, who claim that town right now, actually dislodged the indigenous communities there, killed almost everybody off in that community, and that is why they can claim that place. Now, whether that allegation is true or not, I don't know. But I have seen semblances of that taking place in many places in the north central, in the state of Benue, and several other states like Taraba, like Plateau. We've seen something that is semblance to that taking place. But rather than prosecute those who are carrying out this attack, we see the body language of the government, you know, trying to negotiate with them to become terrorist apologists. And even though this present administration is not the one that brought this on us, I mean, this started even since the time of Goodluck Jonathan. But then we would have expected that this present administration would be, you know, more firm in its handling of the situation. But when they now appointed somebody like Matawale, who was a terrorist apologist, you know, unpretending, during his tenure in office, he was always negotiating with terrorists, whilst doing little to take care of the victim of all these terrorist attacks, you know. And now that person is now the chief of defense, I mean, the minister for defense. Yes. And even in the 2 years that he has become the minister for defense, we are not seeing any changes. I would have expected that the same way the president sacked the military chiefs when the coup rumor, you know, surfaced, he would have sacked the minister for defense, so that we won't get here. So For me, I am happy that the US is saying this, but I am also not happy that the US is saying it wants to put boots on the ground in Nigeria. And you know the funny thing, let's be realistic to ourselves. It is not even mostly the people affected in the northeast, in the north central and northwest that went to lobby the US government for this. It is actually people who want the government to fail. I am not one of those who will hide behind the finger and try to be diplomatic in my cause. People want this government to fail, and they went and lobbied the US, thinking that this will help them. You know, once they destabilize the country, maybe they will through that be able to get power. That is the simple, plain truth. The US in 2003 said Iraq has weapon of mass destruction. Till tomorrow, we have not found it. The same thing, the attack on Libya in 2011, we have not seen what they accused Libya of till today. Even though we are seeing what they have accused Nigeria of, I just hope that their efforts in helping us will remain at only sanctions. Let them sanction all the government office holders who are being seen to be terrorist apologists, who have been seen not to be carrying out their duties in stemming the tide of terrorism. Terrorist sponsors, I mean, they have intelligence network everywhere, so they know a lot of known terrorist sponsors, and many of those known terrorist sponsors spend the money from terrorism in the US, in Europe, and in the UK. So let them stop them from coming into the UK, let them, into Europe, into US, let them stop their family, their children who are currently residing over there, let them be deported back to Nigeria. Let the intervention of the US government remain at that. If the US government say they are coming to Nigeria, I, as a person, know that they are not coming to help us. I know that they are only coming to rape our country, to take our rare earth mineral, to take our mineral resources, because I see the challenge that the US is facing with its sanction war and economic war with China, with India, with Russia. And US is losing on all those and is trying to shore up its defense from other sources, and we should not be pawns in the hands of the US government. So while I am happy on the one side that they are saying this, as it will make our leaders who are lackadaisical in their efforts towards stemming the tide of all these terrorist attacks in the country, to sit tight, to know that okay, it is not business as usual, but saying that US should have boots on the ground in the country, I think it will be met by a lot of resistance in a lot of parts of the country, and if we are not careful, that will result into civil war. And that is exactly what the US want. They want your country to go up in flames, for there to be civil war. Then they will come in the name of giving you humanitarian aid, and then be using your people as lab rats to test their new medicine, be using your resources to fund their own economy in their own country. And that is why, for me, as a Nigerian who know the pattern and style of the US government, it is said in the International Foreign Affairs Quarter that to be an enemy of the US is dangerous, but to be a friend of the US is fatal. That means that, yes, while it is dangerous to be an enemy of the US, if you are a friend of the US, you are dead, because the US itself will kill you. The Gulf War in 1991, Iraq went and took permission from the US and said, Kuwait is stealing our oil and we from the border, and we need to take care of it. The US consulate in Iraq called the White House, got approval, and told Iraq they can attack Kuwait. The moment Iraq attacked Kuwait, US government went in there gun blazing, saying they want to defend Kuwait, that Iraq is doing something wrong. And that was what led to the war in 1991. The same thing in 2003. They wanted to come in and get free oil. They were lying that Iraq has weapon of mass destruction. There is no country. If I have the time, I can give you 10, 15 countries who have liaised with the US, done business with the US, and US, messed them up. I don't want to use the F word, messed them up badly, including Venezuela. The problem that Nicolas Maduro is facing right now, US propped him up to become president, but because he will not dance to their tune again, they are breaking the country up. Now, our country is doing well in the international scene. We are seeming to be turning the corner and emerging from our economic doldrum. And we are looking like a threat to a lot of nations who used to sell all whatnots to our market before, because now they are seeing the trajectory we are taking, that we might become self-sufficient and independent in a few years down the line. And so they want to destabilize us. And a few people who are angry at the government because they lost the last election are happy that, this US is not coming to rescue anybody. That's the long and short of what I want to say. Yes, our government has failed. Yes, our government needs to sit right and protect its people. Personally, me, I don't even, all this big English, I don't even want it. The only thing I want the government to do is let people who want to have gun to protect their family and can go through all the rigor of the testing required by the government to do the testing, procure gun, and protect their own family. Terrorists cannot be having access to gun, and me, as an individual who just want to protect my wife and children, will not be able to have access to gun. And I will not be able to have access to gun. So let them relax the gun law so that people can protect themselves. We have seen it in states and villages where people have access to Dane gun, and they routed terrorists with their AK-47 and all the rest. Why? Because they are not taking knife to gun battle.
Well, that's a failure of governance at its highest, because if we must maintain civility, then everyone should not have guns. The United States, one of the growing or the superpower, have allowed for gun laws, and today, every day, you see people killing themselves, and that is not the best bet.
My brother, you see, that is one of the, almost every journalist I've spoken to in Nigeria, and I've spoken to quite a lot, that is one of the challenge I have with you guys. It seems the only country every journalist studies in Nigeria is US. Don't take my word for it. Google it right now. Countries like Finland, Norway, Denmark, Switzerland, which other one have I not mentioned? Holland. Holland is Holland. Once you are 16 years old, the government will train you how to shoot, and they will issue your own gun to you once you are 16 years old. And those about 6 or 7 countries that I mentioned have the lowest gun challenge in the world. They have lowest gun crime in the whole world. With only Japan having a lower gun crime than them. But those countries, once you are 16 years, it is in the olden days that one uncle will come from America and be telling you lies that this is what they do there, this is what they do not there. Now everybody can Google it. Finland, Denmark, Switzerland, Holland, Sweden, all those Scandinavian countries, almost all their citizens are reserve defense. So why are we focusing on US? Nigeria is not US. Our culture, our way of life is different from the US way of life. A US child can tell his father, "Daddy, shut up." A US father will be begging his child or be knocking on his child's door to enter his room. As old as you are, as old as I am, even with us having our own children, I don't think our daddy still knock our doors to enter our house till today. They know born me well that I will see my father and not prostrate to him as a Yoruba boy. Even though he will say, don't worry, but that is our culture. So our culture is different from US culture. The gun violence and challenge that US is facing, we will not face it, because in Nigeria, we don't have that mental health disaster that US has allowed to fester in their own country. We don't have it here. So let's stop jumping to that narrative that everybody is pushing in our mouth. And it is so bad that a lot of us who sit in our comfort and safety in safe places like Lagos are the one always pushing this narrative. If you have seen people whose wife or maybe a family member being deboweled, by terrorists, terrorists raping people's wife and cutting off people's children's head, I'm sure you will not be saying this. We need people, and you know what I have said is that there are laws guiding ownership of guns. So it is not every Tom, Dick, and Harry. There are tests that federal government through the police does for people before they can issue them gun licenses. So for you to be able to go through all those tests and pass and then be issued a gun license, it means that the government has seen you fit mentally, psychologically, and otherwise. So let's stop jumping into all these arguments of US this, US that or when it comes to gun issue.
Okay, I think he has said a whole lot, but I have a question I really need to ask. Yeah, from the story. So, the U.S. President Donald Trump, he has designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern. So, Mr. Olubenga, what exactly does it mean for Nigeria to be labeled as a country of particular concern?
The label is nothing special, you know. The label is, I mean, this is not the first time that President Donald Trump labeled us a country of particular concern in his first term, you know, between 2016 and 2020. It was when President Joe Biden came into office that he changed it and gave our people a small rest. So I am happy that Donald Trump is doing this. What I am saying is that I don't want US to invade my country. My country is a sovereign nation that can handle its own issue without external aggressors. And these external aggressors coming in, I know their pattern. I am a student of history. There is no history of war, of diplomacy that has happened in this world in the last 300 years that I have not read about. And I've seen the consistent pattern in the last 300 years that many of these nations in Europe, especially the superpowers, US, Britain, France, and Belgium in the past, they are never in the interest of helping any country, especially not an African country that they believe is subhuman. They are only interested in coming into those countries and taking out the resources of those countries without paying a dime.
All right, that's awesome. Now let's just before we let you leave, let's speak about diplomacy at this point. Diplomacy is serious business. When you have a fracas or what seems to be a fracas between one country and another, you don't employ propagandists to help you do the talking. You engage people who understand diplomacy. Unfortunately, with this administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have people like Reno Mokri, who's a social media actor. We have people like Bayo Onanuga, who is a journalist, not a PR expert by any form. We have Daniel Bwala, a lawyer who does not understand anything about journalism or PR. And these are the people at the forefront speaking on behalf of the president and Nigeria. And of course, we've seen what a boomeranging effect it has made and incurred for Nigeria. So what do you think going forward President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should do to correct all of this anomaly? But most importantly, checkmate this data boys that he has employed within the corridor of power.
Well, I bet to differ with you calling those people data boys. With the exception of Reno Mokri, who does not have any portfolio in the government, who is just speaking on his own personal terms. Whether somebody is funding him or not behind the scene is a different topic for another day. But Bayo Onanuga is the presidential spokesperson. Daniel Bwala is also one of the presidential mouthpieces. So calling them data boys is a disservice to our nation. You know, even if we don't like them, we must respect the offices that they hold. Now, for the angles at which, when you are talking about diplomacy, you don't need to be a journalist to be a diplomat. In fact, 90% of diplomats are not journalists or people in PR. Yes, they might learn certain aspects of PR as part of their courses, maybe during undergraduate or postgraduate or all those short courses that they do. But the fact is that international relations, foreign relations, is a different kettle of fish entirely. And saying that it is the utterances of the three people you mentioned that is prompting all this bad image, I disagree with it, because what I know is that a lot of things are happening, not necessarily even in Nigeria, that are affecting Nigeria. Okay, so let me give you an example. When they wanted to attack Libya, it was all about the oil in Libya. And it was a battle between the French and the US. Some of the materials have been declassified by the CIA. It was a battle between the French and the US on who gets in first to steal the oil. And that the US got in first, even though they both declared joint no-fly zone, and then there was a sharing formula for that oil. That is why till today, both French government and the US government are sponsoring the warring parties, the government in Tripoli and then the other government in, is it Agadez or where is it, in Libya, so that they will continue to be rebel forces fighting against each other, and once there is no stability, they will take over. Now, recently, a lot of military junta took over in French West Africa, and they expelled French government, thereby reducing French access to some of the resources they used to take for free. And therefore, they are looking for other places to take these resources now, because they have tried negotiation, they have tried threat, they have tried all different tactics. It did not work in those nations. So they are looking for other resources while they are still trying whatever it is to get back those nations to be getting temporary respite. And therefore, they will prop up some of these challenges in nations whose internal intelligence structure is weak. And so when this happens, many of the so-called bandit attacks in Nigeria are attacks carried out by illegal miners who want to expel people from a certain village where they have discovered precious earth metal and then be doing their illegal mining there. We've seen it happen in the southwest, in several states in the southwest. Let's not even talk about the north. I might not be living in the north every day. I only go to visit, but at least I know some towns and villages in the southwest, even though I can't mention for their names for security reasons and for my own personal reasons, because my access to those information were just privileged access, and I didn't take pictures or video evidence to be able to mention those things. But people are mining precious metals illegally in several places, with the active connivance of political, religious, and traditional leaders in those places. And sometimes, because they are mining this thing, sometimes it's the Chinese that are mining in those places, sometimes it is the French, and all these people will come in the night, great communities, disguised as and that's why we need to be careful. So for me, I don't see that it is the utterances of rain or mockery or whatever. While men sleep in Nigeria, people in governance in the European axis of power and in the US axis of power are awake, and they are strategizing how to destabilize not just Nigeria, but as many African countries as they can destabilize for their own gain. So if you can say all the right things, you can do all the right things. If they don't want to, okay, what did Jonathan do that was wrong? What did Jonathan say that was wrong? But they held on to the fact that he refused to sign the LGBTQ bill that they want to force on us that time. It was one of the reasons why the axis of power in Europe and the US ganged up against Jonathan.
Yes, but don't you think, sorry to interject here, it's very important that you mentioned this. And I do not know if my editors can have the picture of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Amechi Buhari in 2014 met the Secretary of State, and they were complaining how bad Goodluck Jonathan was in 2014. And today, I do not know if you believe in karma, but do you think that the chicken is coming home to roost in 2025, knowing the role President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the opposition made against Goodluck Jonathan as at the time collaborating with the US against Nigeria?
While you might say the chicken is coming home to roost, which you are not wrong to say, if we want to be sincere with ourselves and stop hiding behind the finger. While we might say the chicken is coming home to roost, let us not forget that the political, economic, and technological terrain that we have in 2011, in 2015, is not the same thing as we have right now. Go and read up what is going on in El Fasher, in the Darfur region of northern Sudan. You will see what war is like. People are dying in drove. Now, everybody with a phone, with data, can stream things to the world that will set the nation on fire. And before we talk what have you, let us not forget that it was ordinary radio that they had in Rwanda in 1994, and 800,000 people died. Now that we have social media that can go viral faster than radio, you know the damage it will cost. And all these nations, they will sell arms to the government, they will sell arms to the rebel group and everybody, because either ways, in your debt, in my debt, is their profit. So they don't care. And that is why I want us as Nigerians, either as journalists or ordinary citizens, to be careful in swallowing the narratives that they want us to swallow, to be careful in following the trajectory that they want us to follow. I mean, you can't be more angry at the government than me. Before this government came to power, I had 2 cars. I have 1 now, and I can barely maintain it due to the rising cost of living. So you can't be more angry than me against this government. But despite that, you see, the peace that we are enjoying, let us not allow people to rile us up unnecessarily and use big English to scatter our nation. When our nation is scattered, they will sit down at the UN Security Council, be drinking tea over our affairs, and be saying we will send humanitarian aids to them. But it is you and I that our children will be tugging at our shirt and saying, "Daddy, I am hungry." That is even if we are alive enough for them to tug at our shirt. That is why we must be careful of all this narrative. That is what I'm saying. It is not, I'm not a supporter of government or whatever, but I know the narrative. I have studied all the war and diplomatic history, the Treaty of Versailles, all the treaties that have been done, you know, the Russo-Japanese War of 1850, the First World War, the Second World War, and all the war within the Vietnamese War. I have read all of them, and I have seen the same fingers and the same systems at play. And I don't want us to be a pawn in their chess game as a nation. That is why I'm speaking the way I'm speaking. I used to be a we no go gree kind of person. I was a student union leader. I was an SUG president during my day in school. But you see, as I grow up and as I continue to study more of world history, I get the knowledge and the insight. I know the games that these people want to play with us even before they make their first move. How many of us who are journalists speaking in our studio have passport to even cross to Republic of Benin, not to talk or fly out of the country, if the country is set on fire today? That is why we need to be careful. We may not like the government, but when, like the Yoruba saying that, when yash spoil, now the owner of the yash go feel amo.
Very well said. So true. It's often said that what is anything broken can be fixed. Even if Nigeria is pseudo broken, we can actually fix it, and everything actually still boils down on leadership. If we have intentional leadership at its best, if the president, the Senate president, the senators, our parliament, our governors are able to allow for good governance, I love to believe no one would even have reasons to go against the government. The reason why the reason why the opposition are strong is because those in power have deliberately refused to do the needful, unfortunately. We pray for Nigeria. We pray that Nigeria will succeed. We pray for the seat of the president, that he will do well, but everything still rests on participatory democracy, participatory leadership, and hopefully we would get it all figured out. Thank you so very much, Mr. Onanuga, for being here. We truly do appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure. And that's about the time we have. We'd love to say thank you. Please do well to follow us. If you may, you can find us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally rewatch this, if you may, when you visit us at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Ikwebike.
And I am Kendi Boduru.
Have yourself a splendid day. God bless Nigeria. God bless you. And we'll see you tomorrow for yet another great time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.